All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for joining us today. I am Andrea Holsworth, and I'm with Project Lead the Way, and we have a couple of different Project Lead the Way team members on the call with us as well. Thank you for joining us for our Project Lead the Way Launch virtual showcase. We're going to be flying and visiting all the way down to Key West, Florida, Horace O'Bryant School. This is the southernmost point in the United States. And we do have an action-packed hour for you today. So we're going to go ahead and get started right away so that you can get an opportunity to really connect with students and teachers. After this intro, I'm going to share with you a little bit more about Project Lead the Way, really set the stage for you to understand what you're seeing in the Project Lead the Way Launch classroom. Then we're going to go and visit our elementary school. We're going to see a kindergarten classroom in action. We're going to hear from students, and we'll also hear from PLTW teachers. After that, we'll hear from perspectives from additional educators from across the country. And we'll have an opportunity to answer any questions that you may have as well. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items before we dive right in. Please feel free to ask any questions that you may have by just throwing those into the chat. We do have some PLTW team members monitoring that, and you can do that at any time during our time together today. Unless you're voicing a question later on, we would ask that you please mute your mic. We're trying to cut down on any background noises so we can really hear and showcase those students today. You can also update your screen preferences in Zoom to control who you can see on your screen. As I mentioned, we'll be sure to allow some time for Q&A. And after our event, we're going to be sending you all of these resources and the recording so that you can share these with your colleagues. Project Lead the Way provides transformative learning experiences for pre-K through 12 students and teachers across this country. We create engaging, hands-on classroom environment and empower students to develop in-demand knowledge and skills that they need to thrive. We also provide teachers with the training, resources, and support that they need to engage students in real-world learning. Our pathways in computer science, engineering, and biomedical science engage students in hands-on activities, projects, and problems, empower them to solve those real-world challenges, and can inspire them to reimagine how they see themselves. Project Lead the Way has trained over 80,000 teachers, and this keeps growing by the month as we have a year-round professional development for our educators. And we have Project Lead the Way programs in over 12,200 schools. The vertical alignment of our curriculum begins with the pre-K through 5 modules of Project Lead the Way Launch, which we're going to be showcasing to you today. This supports the pathways as well as a variety of science concentrations. The experience that the Project Lead the Way curriculum team has gained, both in the field and in previous teaching experiences, inspires them to continually assess and evolve the curriculum to meet the needs of both students and teachers across the country. Project Lead the Way Launch provides students with a variety of benefits that have prepared a generation of students for the evolving world. Students acquire skills that apply to all disciplines and that most industries demand most. The combination of 3-dimensional learning, activity, project, and problem-based instructional approach, and real-world applied learning ensures an unmatched experience for your students. Each module begins with an introductory story involving Milo, Susie, and Angelina, where a problem is used to set the stage for that module. And hands-on activities and projects provide a scaffold for developing knowledge and skills that are applied in solving an open-ended real-world problem. Project Lead the Way Launch is designed to support your science learning needs. The curriculum also supports best practices in science education, again, ensuring a really unmatched experience. More than ever, schools are placing a larger emphasis on the social and emotional learning of students, and Project Lead the Way Launch helps support you and your students in that initiative. Without going in depth into SEL, one great example of this is in the social awareness component. In PLTW Launch classrooms, students are consistently working in small group settings, collaborating with their peers, and providing feedback to meet the needs of others while also showing respect. We also know that early and equitable access to engaging hands-on content reinforces language development through authentic learning. PLTW Launch supports literacy and language acquisition in many ways, including through story structure, expository text, and opportunities for nonfiction writing and vocabulary development connected to each of the activities, the projects, and the problems. Project Lead the Way Launch integrates math concepts and practices set at an appropriate grade level into the learning as well. To help ensure access to more students everywhere, PLTW provides both Spanish and English of all 43 modules for both teacher and student editions. Project Lead the Way supports a wide variety of flexible implementations, and we're here to support you in developing your implementation plan. These flexible implementations support your scheduling and your staffing needs, while also aligning to your pre-K through 12 district STEM vision. So now that you have a really high-level overview of Project Lead the Way Launch, let's see it in action and hear from those that matter most, students and teachers. So I'd like to introduce you to my PLTW teammate, Mary Murphy, who is the Project Lead the Way Director of School Success, who will also be our tour guide at our featured school. Thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Andrea. Thank you so much and welcome everyone. It is great to be speaking to you from here in Key West, Florida. We are at Horace O'Bryant School and we have an exciting agenda for you today. We're going to speak with the administration, then get a nice tour of the classroom, meet with our PLTW teachers, and actually hear from students. So I'd like to kick it off today by introducing and with a warm thank you and welcome to Principal 𝐲𝐨𝐿. And thank you so much. We're going to switch over and say hello.
Well, thank you, Mary. I appreciate being here. Again, my name is Brian 𝐲𝐿, and I'm the principal of HOB school in beautiful Key West, Florida, where it's a balmy 83 degrees. I hope you guys are going to enjoy this little program we have. And let me tell you a little bit about our school. We are a K-8 school with around 1,000 students. We have our challenges include we have 20% of our population are ELL students. 35% of our student body are economically disadvantaged, and 25% of our population are considered students with disabilities. So there are plenty of challenges in our building here. We are also very ethnically diverse, with 47% of our student body being Hispanic, 24% white, and 21% African American. Another interesting fact about our school is 67% of our students qualify for free or reduced lunches. Project Lead the Way was introduced here during the 1920 school year when the district began training the staff on Project Lead the Way. Due to COVID-19, PLTW wasn't implemented into our classrooms until last year, and it became a huge success. We use Project Lead the Way as our grade-specific curriculum for our STEM class, in which every elementary student in grades K to 5 has once a week. Since implementing the curriculum of Project Lead the Way, we have many students who now say that this STEM class is their favorite class, which was not always the case. Since implementing, the students love it. From kindergarten, exploring different solids and liquids, third graders building simple machines, and fifth graders doing experiments about what plants need to grow. Being a Title I school, Project Lead the Way allows us to expose our students to so much more in the sciences and engineering than they would have had access to otherwise. And to continue with our program, I'd like to introduce Marissa, who will take us on our next journey.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm Marissa Means. I am the coordinator of STEM and Health in Monroe County School District. I'm happy to be here with you at HOB. I'm going to take you into the STEM elective class with Miss Mellon, who is teaching a kindergarten course right now, and it's focusing on sinking and floating. I'm not going to give you too much information because we want you to see the kids in action with Miss Mellon. So we'll go ahead and head on over to their class.
Hello, welcome to kindergarten STEM. We have our kindergarten class in here right now. We have been working on the module matter, floating and sinking. Today we are doing the project portion where the students are given a tub of water along with a tray with 8 different items. One by one, they drop them into the water, see if they sink or float, and we have a corresponding page in our launch log where we draw in where they last. So please come on in, check it out. We're having a great time.
So students, can you tell me what is going on in your activity?
It's floating. It just sticks on my eye.
So tell me what's happening.
Cut.
It's floating. Ayla, can you tell us what's happening?
On my arm. It
Just
just
stick to your hand. I know. It's so exciting.
It's like floating.
Good job, you jelly.
Ms. Mellon, what are they learning in this part?
We are learning about floating and sinking, and this is our us exploring it with different items so we can test to see what floats and what sinks, just like scientists do.
Now, Ms. Mellon, we do have a real project that goes along with this. What will the students do at the end after they learn these concepts?
So after this, we move into our problem where we have to design and build a device that can float on water, and it will carry a message to our friend across the creek and keep our message dry. So we turn our floating experiment into building a floating device next. Good job.
Excellent. We will now go over to our third table.
Let's try that.
You think so? You're absolutely right. What about your marbles? You take one marble, your marble, it's your marble. You take your marble, you think the marble?
And students, what are you trying to discover?
Can you show her one thing that sinks?
Show me the sink.
Does the heart
Show her.
does the heart down? Does it sink or does it come back up?
Oh, nice work.
Hey, Mary, this is, we're loving seeing the students working. Can you ask the students for us, what happens if their device doesn't float the first time, or if it works every time?
Absolutely. We'll go back to this group. Our kindergartners are very active and find out what we do if it doesn't work out perfect. So, hi, can you tell me what happens if it doesn't sink or float? What do you do?
I draw it.
You try. Can
Wow.
we test it again?
Can I
If it doesn't work the first time, what should we do?
Draw it.
Draw. Do we draw it? Do we try again?
try again?
Good job.
Can I see your drawing? I see you have a drawing there. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So the penny, it kind of floats, but then it is like down.
So what else did you draw at the top that floats?
The stick.
The stick floats. What else floats that you drew?
Oh.
What is this one?
The heart.
Heart. What else
Excellent.
did you draw on your page? Can you tell me one more thing you drew?
The belly button.
The button. Did the button sink or float?
The seat.
Good job, you jelly.
Yeah.
Let's try the button again. Let's try the button again. See if it does the same thing.
Excellent. I was going to tell, what do you love best about STEM class?
You like our experience? What do you like about STEM class?
I like when we do the shapes.
Oh, you like when we make shapes?
Perfect.
Wow.
Perfect. This is quite interactive. We're going to go to the last group.
Hey, Mary, before you head over to that last group, one of the questions that we wanted to ask those students is they were showcasing their launch logs that they were drawing in.
Yes.
Can you kind of share a little bit more about those launch logs, or ask them how they utilize those launch logs in their launch modules?
Absolutely. Let's go to this group and we'll see if we can get an answer on that. That's a great question. And I love the kindergartners, very interactive. Hi, how are you? And I'm wondering if you can tell me about your launch. Can you tell me about some of the pictures you did that would be a part of your launch log?
Well, this is actually sticking on my hand.
Yeah.
What does your
Miss-
picture show?
No, right here. What did you draw on the shape?
I draw the sinking and floating. like there's a rainbow and there I can see it.
Excellent, excellent. And we are going to be going over to hear from some students individually to kind of hear a little bit of what they do. And that will be in our next room. Andrea, anything else we would like to hear from the class today, seeing it in action?
No, that was great. Thanks for showcasing that launch module for us in the kindergarten classroom.
Excellent. We are going to now walk over to talk to some students. Thank you. Hopefully we are going at a good speed. So we had some students that came right from this activity, and we wanted to just talk with them personally where it's not a little too loud and exciting. So thank you, Ms. Mellon. We look forward to hearing some of your questions with our students.
Definitely. So first, can you guys say your names? Let's start here.
Yadelli.
Yadelli.
Angel. Sunshine.
Sunshiny. Okay, so can you tell me what is your favorite part about STEM and the things we do at PLTW? Yadelli, what do you think?
Doing clay. Doing shapes with the clay.
Doing shapes with the clay. Sunshiny, what's your favorite part?
Doing shapes with the clay.
The clay too? Angel, what's your favorite part?
Same.
The same, okay. Did you like the experiments we did? What did you guys think about our experiments?
Good.
Good?
Good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What do you remember about them?
What we did was the raisins.
The raisins. And what happened with the raisins?
Some of them sink and some of them float with like the air bubbles.
Yeah, they floated we did it with the air bubbles.
And Ms. Mellon, could you tell me a little, the audience may not know what the raisin
Yes.
module includes.
So our last time that we did, it's called Dancing Raisins, where we tested to see if a raisin would float or sink, if it would change when the liquid changed. So the first time we did it was just in plain water. And what happened to the raisin in the plain water? Did it float? It sank. And then our second liquid we tried was carbonated water with the raisin. And what happened to the raisin with the carbonated
Like
water?
mine dance. It's like floating and like going down. It's like going up, down,
Yeah,
up, down.
Angel had a really good dancing raisin. So it would sink first, and then what attached to the raisin that made it
The
float?
bubble.
The bubbles, and it made the raisin
Wow.
come up, and then they'd pop and go back down. So we saw dancing raisins last week.
Very impressive. Can I ask briefly, what is your favorite part of STEM Project Lead the Way class?
Doing shapes with the clay.
The clay.
Wow, you're really-
What has been the most challenging for you or the toughest?
With the raisin.
The raisins was hard. What was the hardest part for you, Sunshiny?
The same.
The same. What about when we had to cut out the grocery store ads? Was that kind of hard? Remember when we looked for solids in the grocery store ads? Was that kind of tricky at first?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you guys got really good at it by the end of it. Was it still tricky, or were you really good at finding solids in the grocery store ads? What do you think? Yeah, you were good at it. You guys are all very good at it.
So the last thing I would ask is, when you come upon challenges, when things are tough, what do you do? What do you do with your classmates? How do you get through these projects that are really tough, like building, you're doing sinking and floating, you're building a ship, right, to send a message? What do you do when it doesn't work out?
You try again.
Yeah, good job,
Excellent.
Angel.
Excellent. Anyone else? What would you do when it doesn't work out?
What do you think, Sunshine? What do we do if something doesn't work the first time?
Try again.
Try again.
Excellent,
Good job,
excellent.
Yadelli.
Well, thank you. That has been so wonderful. We'd like
Hey, Mary,
to.
we do have one more question.
Sure.
Can you ask our kindergarten friends here if they're usually working in pairs or together, or do they work alone during their Project Lead the Way launch time?
Okay, so do you all work together, or do you work kind of by yourself during your STEM class?
Together.
You do? How do you
Yeah.
like that? Is that,
Do you like working together?
you like it?
Yeah.
What's your favorite part about working together? Anything? What do you think, Sunshiny?
Be friends.
Being friends.
Oh, sorry, we can't all go awe to that. Excellent. Well,
Mary,
thank
we
you
do have,
so
I'm
much.
sorry, Mary, we just have, get one more question for you, from the chat is, how does, their STEM class feel a little bit different than the other classes that they're in during the day?
Oh, that's a great question.
So how is STEM different? So think we go to music, we go to PE, we have computer lab. How do you think STEM is different from all the other classes we have at school? What do you think? Ayla, what do you think?
Because STEM has science and the other stuff have different.
Yeah, STEM has science
STEM has
stuff.
science stuff.
We don't do as much science stuff in other classes. Yadeli, what do you think? How is STEM different from all your other classes?
Because STEM is like a place to do science.
Yeah. Do we get to use our hands a lot in STEM?
Yeah.
Do you like using your hands in class?
Yeah.
I agree, it's fun.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions?
That's it. Thanks, Mary.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, students, so much. We would like to kind of give just a few minutes to talk with Miss Mellon. Just a couple questions, Miss Mellon, if you wouldn't mind,
course,
about
definitely.
Project Lead the Way.
All
So-
right, so let's go back to the classroom. We'll finish our experiment.
Yay.
Good job.
So thank you, Miss Mellon. That was absolutely wonderful. And
Thank you.
kindergartners, we're just moving them along. Our last
Thank you.
Our last bit from here is really, I just had a couple of questions for you as a classroom teacher. So first, you had a great story about Project Lead the Way and the fact that you had not been from the teaching background. Would you like to tell
Oh,
a little
definitely.
bit about that? Because I think that's fantastic.
Definitely. So I am a brand new teacher. My first year teaching STEM, I had no curriculum. It was pretty much on me to figure out what am I going to teach, what am I going to do every week. And then since switching to Project Lead the Way, it has been absolutely amazing because I came from, I had a science degree, but not a teaching degree. So the way that all of the lessons are spelled out with the step-by-step instructions and then the additional resources, because if it's about a topic like, let me think of one. Simple machines were something that I hadn't done since I was in high school, but the additional resources, it's like 2 pages, simple to like really easy to read. So I could read through, get a nice refresher. I had the lesson all laid out. Pretty much the lesson plans were done because I had no idea how to write a lesson plan. And so being able to come in, I feel like the quality of my lessons and what the students were taking drastically increased as soon as we implemented PLTW, because it wasn't just up to me to figure out what am I going to do? How am I going to do this? How am I going to build this? I had so many resources that were provided to me and all of the online resources. Like it has drastically changed, like a night and day difference in what I can do in my STEM classes and with my classes.
Fantastic. What has been the aha moment for your students that you've seen? It's hard for them, I know, at 5 years old to explain that, but what have you seen that's really been particular for Project Lead the Way?
Well, let's see. Well, so definitely for the kindergarten class, like what you guys just saw, we've been introducing the states of matter and the solids, liquids, and gases. And the first time when we did it, and I was trying to explain to them, okay, everything is made of matter. And they're just kind of sitting like looking at me like, okay, lady, like, I don't know what you're saying, but all right, I'm going to go with it. And then as soon as we started exploring and they held solids in their hand and we built with solids, we looked for solids in the grocery store. And then we explored liquids, pouring them in different containers and seeing the shapes, looking for them in grocery store ads, experiments with gases. So like the more the students had their hands on the actual concepts and it wasn't just a page or me telling them something, like you could just see all the little light bulbs going off. One of my favorite days is where we talk about a liquid turning to a gas. We go outside, we have a bucket of water with a paintbrush. The students paint with water on the sidewalk and then it evaporates and turns to gas. And that one always blows their mind. They're
And
like,
that's
oh my God.
And which grade level module is that
That's
one?
kindergarten,
Oh, fantastic, fantastic.
definitely.
And the last question I had is because I've seen, here we've talked a lot of folks are Spanish speaking, and some of the you shared some amazing opportunities with our Spanish curriculum as well. Would you mind sharing that with our
Definitely.
participants?
So we have a very large population at our school of Spanish speaking students. We have a lot of students who come to our school that have never been in a school in the United States before, so they've never really been in an English speaking environment. And again, for me, I haven't taken Spanish since I was in high school, so I was a little rusty, and I really wanted to be able to communicate more with these students. And so having everything in PLTW available in not only English, but also in Spanish, I was able to provide those resources to our Spanish speaking students, which automatically makes them feel more comfortable in my classroom because they feel like they belong there, like they're wanted there. And then a lot of times what I do is I give them the resources in English and in Spanish, and I let them decide which one they would prefer to use. And a lot of times what I see is they use the English, but when they get to a word that maybe they don't understand, they look at the Spanish version, they find where it is, they read it, and it makes sense. And it's funny because I've started doing the same thing, but in reverse. I print them both out. I'm trying to talk to the student. So I'll go on the page, find where the Spanish word is that I'm looking for, and use that to try and communicate with them. So it's been kind of fun seeing it going both ways. They're looking at the Spanish version to find the word that they need, and vice versa. And so am I, but in the opposite direction. So it's been really cool to have that resource to use in my classroom.
Excellent, Ms. Mellon. Thank you so much. We do just have a couple minutes left, and Andrea would like, if we can talk a little bit about the district for a brief moment if the time permits. Otherwise, I think that we are set. Ms. Mellon, I know you 5-year-olds are waiting.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, that's great. Tell Miss Mellon, thank you so much. And we enjoyed getting a peek into her classroom. We'd love to learn a little bit more about the district. So if you want to share that, Mary.
Yeah. So Marissa, thank you so much. I wanted to just, take the opportunity. You've been really an advocate for Project Lead the Way, and you work with all of the Monroe Key schools. There are numerous programs, both elementary, middle, and high, and just wanted to get a quick moment. We have about 2 minutes left from this end to kind of share how you've done that work and how Project Lead the Way has been K-12.
Absolutely. So when I came into PLTW, I was actually a media specialist using it as part of my makerspace in my media center up at Sugarloaf School, when Melissa also Brooks, who had this position before me, really believed in PLTW and the amazing things that the program has to offer. So I came in as a launch teacher into my current position. I became a launch lead teacher. So I was able to then better train our teachers from QS to 𝐲𝐲𝐬. I'm currently working on getting PLTW Launch, Gateway, and into our high school programs to have that vertical alignment from K to 12. We're doing a really good job. It's slow but sure. We're focusing on it being an elective and in special areas teacher, so we're impacting more students. I'm looking at data to see which of the modules will benefit our students the most. As far as our 5th grade data, we noticed Earth and Space was something that they really struggled with. So looking back at the modules, we chose modules that would align to that and fill those gaps that our students were coming into 5th grade with. So it's been a fun process. I love getting in and doing coaching cycles with my with the PLTW teachers, working with them, working with the students is definitely the best part of my job.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And I know the district is considered a rural district, so it's really spread out over the Keys. It's not, a lot of folks may think of the tourism, but it really is the folks that live here have a great opportunity to get these courses.
Yes.
So Andrea, I think that's it. That's all we have.
Yeah, actually, Mary, we have just a couple of questions if you have some time on your end, if that's okay.
We sure do. We have, who would you like to ask questions to? Can I pull them back in?
Yeah, we just had a question regarding, I think the administrator we were just connecting with would be great, ideal for this question. In the chat, people are sharing how much they really appreciate the model of the way the district is implementing Project Lead the Way and that specials rotation. Can you share, or can they share a little bit more on within that specials rotation? Were there any classes that they needed to change out or remove to add Project Lead the Way, or did you just add an additional specials course?
Excellent.
I think we implemented the STEM program, and then we just took Project Lead the Way and incorporated it into that class.
And each school is very unique. And the Keys, as Mary mentioned, we have schools from QS to Key Largo, which is about 100 and some miles. So it's a very long district, not many schools, but we definitely we still have art, we have music, and all of those things as electives, but STEM is a part of that rotation, and every student K-5, if PLTW is an option. They go through that rotation as well. So nobody's left out of that content and curriculum.
So it's a required rotation.
Correct.
Versus an elect.
Correct.
Yeah, excellent.
In the middle schools and high schools, it's elected by the students, but K through 5.
But K through
is-
5, it's mandatory and
Correct.
they're part of their regular
Yeah.
routines. Excellent.
Yeah,
Andrea.
That's
Any
great.
other questions for our administrators?
Yeah, one last question for you is related to, we were talking to the kindergarten students and obviously we just shared with you the specials rotation. Have you seen a difference in your other courses, or have you, the way your students are interacting with those subjects based on their experience in Project Lead the Way launch?
I see that these younger students very confident in their interactions with other students as well. And especially coming out of the COVID period, you know, where social skills weren't emphasis for very often, to get them back and working together and really enjoying their lessons has been really helpful in acclimating them back into the school setting.
Absolutely. And with all the mandates, as we know, as teachers, we have so much to teach in so little time. It actually does a great service to our students to set the foundations or fill the holes that they're not getting in their core curriculum for science. So, and it's integrating the reading and writing and math and all the wonderful things that we want our students to have access to. So it's beneficial for our core classroom teachers as well.
Excellent. Thank you, folks. So
That's great. Thank you for those questions, Mary.
absolutely. And we're really excited and thank you for joining us here from the Keys. And we will put closure and hand it over to you, Andrea. We look forward to hearing from the teacher panel. And thanks to the team here, there's amazing administrators. We've really appreciated the opportunity to share their programs.
Thanks, Mary. And again, thank you so much to our kindergarten friends over at HOB today. I don't know about you, but I always get inspired after listening to kindergarten students and just hearing them and the vocabulary that they're utilizing, knowing what they're doing in that Project Lead the Way launch classroom. So as we mentioned, we're going to have an opportunity to hear from a couple of some educators from other schools and districts. And so I would like to welcome, let me step back here. We're going to transition over to our panel discussion. And I'll go ahead and we'll be introducing our panelists. But as you can imagine, we do have many school district administrators on this call today. We know that things happen in a school, and sometimes as a principal, you are pulled away into another direction, even though your schedule was going to be there today. So we do have Shauna on the call today, and Carol Tharp is not going to be able to join us. She is busy taking care of something in her school building, but we will absolutely get her perspective at some point. So Shauna, I'll just have a conversation with you about Project Lead the Way and launch and what that looks like. But if you could first just start off with doing an introduction, share your school, your district, your role, and what your school looks like for your, and what Project Lead the Way looks like for your students right now.
Okay, thank you. So as Andrea said, my name's Shanna Wydra, and I'm the STEM and Career Tech Director for Steubenville City Schools. And we're located in Steubenville, Ohio, which is about 24 miles west of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So if you're familiar with the Pittsburgh Steelers, we're pretty close to that area. Our district, we have 4 elementary schools, 1 middle school and 1 high school. And I came on board in May of 2014, and the district made a commitment to creating a STEM program and in effect kind of reestablishing a career tech program for our high school. And so one of the ways we felt it would be beneficial to kickstart our STEM was to come on board with Project Lead the Way. And it's just been a great experience. We started out just with one of our elementary schools, and this elementary school is McKinley STEM Academy. We opened this school in the fall of 2019, and it's solely a STEM focused school. And so STEM is infused in every content throughout the day. And so we brought in Launch, and it's just been so great. The way we utilize Launch at McKinley is in a co-teaching environment. So we have our lead teacher, her name's Heather Hoover, and she's responsible for the launch. And then she goes into each classroom, and the teacher, along with Mrs. Hoover, co-teach that module. And it's just a great learning experience, because then the learning doesn't stop when that class period is over. So those classroom teachers are able to continue to build upon that lesson, that module. And then it's just a really great way to kind of plan out themes for your year, because they really center around those modules that we're doing. So our theme for the first 9 weeks, for the second, for the third, is all centered around that launch module. And then we had such great success with McKinley. We onboarded Launch in our 3 other elementary schools. So all 4 of our elementary schools utilize the Launch program. And we also utilize Gateway in our middle school. And then we're hoping to bring in engineering and the biomedical sciences for our high school for next year. So we're great fans of Project Lead the Way. The training, I can't say enough about how great the training is for the teachers and our staff, and our students just love the program.
That's great. Thank you so much for that overview. And I really appreciate how your district is thinking at spectrum, the continuum of the K-12 experience for your students. You mentioned this a bit, Shauna, when you were talking about implementing Gateway and engineering and biomedical science for your students and really giving them that career learning experience. But can you share how you connect career learning or career connections into some of your early grades in elementary?
Yeah, so in Ohio, we do career connections and we do student interest surveys every year. And we do that in our elementary schools, in our middle school, and our high school. And that's really what guides the programming that we bring in. And it's really exciting because the students love when they get to do their student interest surveys, because they feel like they have a say in what they're going to learn. And so that's really how we kind of plan out the modules that we bring in and the themes that we incorporate. And we don't do the same modules at, for instance, the 4 elementary schools. So one elementary school is doing this theme. And so it's just really great to see the entire program spread out through the entire district and how each building takes ownership of that and how the students thrive off of that.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly not going to say that the elementary schools kind of will compete against each other a little bit.
There's never competition.
Right. I mean, which just makes it even more fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing a little bit more on those career connections. You mentioned that there's that opportunity for the co-teaching for your classroom teachers and your Project Lead the Way teachers. Can you share if you have seen or your teachers have seen any of those connections of like math and science having more connections for students after being in Project Lead the Way?
We do. And so our district, we implement Success for All reading, and it's a 90-minute block of reading that every student in K through 8th grade has every day throughout the whole school year. And the really exciting piece to that is it's not 90 solid minutes, so it's broken up with STEM-based projects. And so Project Lead the Way was the perfect way to bring that, not only that co-teaching model into that 90-minute reading block, but also how to bring in those STEM themes utilizing the Project Lead the Way program. And it's really great to see some of your, not necessarily your struggling readers, but not always your advanced readers, are the ones that are leading that STEM-based project through Project Lead the Way, because they're more hand oriented. They can think a little more methodically in that way. And so you'll sometimes see when they're broken out in reading groups, your advanced readers are kind of leading the reading passages, but then your more engineering minded students are spearheading the actual project that they're doing. And so it's just a really great cohesive learning environment where every student has a role that they're confident in how they're moving forward with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that kind of, thanks for teeing up my next question for me, Shauna. You mentioned students with different skill sets and mindsets. And so we often get the question at Project Lead the Way is, who is Project Lead the Way for? What students? So can you share a little bit more on that in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think Project Lead the Way is for every student, but I really love how Project Lead the Way addresses students of all learning abilities. And what I really love seeing is how some of the students that aren't necessarily, that top tier learning are the ones that really get that, this is how you're supposed to do it. And let's break it down this way. And they're not scared to make mistakes, or they're not scared that their robot's not going to work, and it's like, okay, it's fine. Let's take this apart. Let's do this. Let's move this. And they really guide that instruction. And that's what I love to see, because that's what's so great about the program, is that every student benefits from it in one way or another. And I just love seeing how different students take different leadership roles, and the comfort level is there.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of that, those critical thinking and transportable skills we often talk about as well. Can you share a little bit more, Shauna, on how Project Lead the Way is different than other curriculum that your students experience?
Yeah, so the Project Lead the Way, it's just so great because it's all centered around the engineering design process. And then what we really like doing is, once a module is completed, we bring in either a couple principals, some school board members, community members, and then we let the students present to them what they've done, how they learned it, how they built this, how they figured this out. And so they kind of have that whole communication process now fused into it. And they just love it. They love when people come in. So, in the beginning of the year, they're a little kind of shy and reserved. And then by after Christmas, they can't wait for the next group of members to come in, because they just can't wait to show what they've built, and then tie it into whatever theme we're doing or whatever book we're reading. And so, it just hits all the learning environments, which is why it's so great in a co-teaching environment as well, because as I said before, it never stops. It's not like, okay, I have this class on Wednesday, I'm not going to do this again until next Wednesday. It's a piece of it every day.
Yeah, that's great. A lot of those cross-curricular connections for sure. Shauna, you mentioned this in your bio, professional development. So at Project Lead the Way, we do pride ourselves on professional development that we provide for educators. So can you share a little bit more about your experience and your teacher's experience related to our launch professional development?
Yeah, so as with most teachers, any kind of a new program, it's always that insecurity of, I don't know this, and what's my comfort level? But I can say from my own personal experience, as well as working with all of our teachers that have been trained, they can't say enough good about the Project Lead the Way training, how it breaks it all down. They learn how to implement the modules. And I know the teacher resources are just top notch, how you can bring in outside components to whatever module you're doing from those teacher resources. And they just love it, because, it's a continuum. So they're not just, okay, we're done, and so like we finish a theme. Okay, here's another resource, take it back to your classroom. We're going to talk about it tomorrow. And then it just glides right into the next module, which is just so great.
Yeah, absolutely. It really provides our educators as many resources as they need to really be successful in their classrooms with those launch modules. And all of that is, for our viewers today, all of that is embedded within their My PLTW after that professional development. Shauna, can you share, so you have been doing this for a little bit, you're successful with your implementation, but can you share, what did you learn most about your implementation, or something that you may have done differently, or hey, no, we got it right the first time?
Well, I always am the type of person, I don't like to say pilot necessarily, but I like to bring programming in where, because you just want it to be successful. When you're an administrator and you're bringing in a new program, the last thing you want to do is force it in and everybody's confused and nobody knows what's going on. So what I really like is how the training is prior to the school year starting. And so those teachers have it's that comfort level. Okay, I did the training. I have my equipment. I have my guide. I know how to navigate the portal. And so that whole piece is taken out. And then it's just getting the students in and, just getting them moving. I would say the one thing I would do differently is I would have started the programming in our high school sooner. Because we've been doing Project Lead the Way since like 2015 now. And I wish we would have gotten into our high school sooner. But we're getting there. We're getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I often share, it's a little bit corny, but go slow to go fast, right? We want you out of those really strong implementations.
Right.
Shauna, can you share, I know a lot of times you have a success story from a student or a success story from a teacher. Do you have any of those you want to share with us today?
Yes, I do. We actually have a student who was in our flight and space at our middle school. So they did the flight and space program. They're now in our high school. In our high school, we do have an aviation program that we're now going to link to our Project Lead the Way. But the really exciting piece is that they're already earning hours towards their student private pilot license. And with the curriculum through Project Lead the Way, we were able to match all of that through the Ohio Department of Education and through the FAA, which is the, I always say this wrong, Federal Aviation something. And so that Project Lead the Way curriculum will count towards book hours for these students that are in our aviation program. So now, as long as they stay the course, they can graduate with their high school diploma and their student private pilot license. So we're really excited about that kind of pipeline program from our middle school to our high school. Yeah,
absolutely.
So we're really excited.
Great career connections. And I'd love to say that it really does start in the elementary though, right? Getting students interested in that STEM before they go into middle school so they can continue to opt in.
Yes.
Well, Shauna, we're going to have you stay on with us and answer some additional questions. And I know Carol just joined us, and I will share with our audience that we want to thank them for joining us today. And we are going to have some additional time for Q&A, some open Q&A. But before we do that, I just want to share some next steps with our audience and share that Project Lead the Way is here to assist you in your implementations, whatever that may look like. So I would encourage you to connect with a Project Lead the Way team member to really discuss any questions you may have, discuss your implementations plans. We're here to support you in that. We're putting an email in the chat for you, and it'll also be in that follow-up email. You can feel free to email, and we will connect you with the appropriate PLTW team member. I also want to share that you can visit our website, pltw.org. There are a lot of different resources on there that you can download. You can download our module descriptions, any standard connections that you're looking for, and also some implementation opportunities in there. One of my favorite things on our pltw.org website is you can also read stories on our blog about how other schools across the country have implemented Project Lead the Way. And just like Shauna was sharing that awesome success story from a student, you can also read some of our success stories and see where some of our Project Lead the Way alumni have ended up. So now, again, if you don't have any more questions, we want to say thank you for joining us today, and we'll be sending these resources and emails to you. But if you do have some questions, please feel free to stay on here, and we will answer some questions. So I'm actually, Carol, thank you for hopping on with us this afternoon. I know you had something come up a little bit ago, and we understand as a school administrator, things happen. Your schedule isn't always yours. So Carol, is it okay if I just start off a question with you to get that started?
So I'm having a little trouble hearing you. It's a terrible echo.
Yeah, okay.
So I'm trying to figure out what's going on.
Okay. Yeah, well, we'll go ahead. We got some questions directly in our chat, Carol. So while you figure that out, we'll put you can go to mute, and we'll come back to you when all the tech issues are resolved. So we've gotten, as I mentioned, we got some of these questions directly, and Shauna, can you answer, getting this question popped up so I read it correctly? What if a school doesn't necessarily, oh, looks like we may have a little bit of echo. If we could mute there, thank you. What if a school doesn't have a STEM teacher? What can we do? How can we support in any other way? Oh, Shauna, sorry, you're on mute.
So I would say you have somebody in your building. I always say there's somebody in your building that has a passion for STEM learning, for project-based learning. And it's really just kind of meeting with your staff, kind of getting a feel for, you know, who you have and what their interests are, and really just exposure to the program. Like I had said earlier, we implemented it in one of our elementary schools to start, and that kind of spearheaded so the other schools wanted to get on board. They didn't necessarily know how they would implement it. And so it's really just taking the time to meet with these building principals, getting a feel for the staff, and really it's just exposure to what the program can do, not just for your staff, but for your students, and show the consistency from elementary to middle school. And now, as we're seeing, into our high school. So I really just think if you can show them the program and show how wonderful it is, it really kind of takes off from there.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Shauna. Mary, I'm gonna toss to you. Do you have Miss Mellon with you?
Miss Mellon is just dismissing her 5-year-olds,
Oh.
but we do have Marissa Means, who also was a launch lead teacher. And Marissa said she is more than happy to answer any questions from the group.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we mentioned, Miss Mellon mentioned a little bit ago the Spanish version and how that's been really helpful for her students. I didn't know if you can tell us a little bit more about utilizing, obviously she was speaking to kindergarten, but your other grade levels and utilizing those Spanish resources.
Absolutely. So with Hillary and the school that we're in, the principal mentioned that they're 50% Hispanic, and K through 5, there are a lot of ELs. And with that, what Hillary does is she prints out the English version and the Spanish version, and she allows the students to choose which one they want to work through. They also go back and forth between the papers and packets to be able to identify key vocabulary in their native language as well as in English. And she also has been learning Spanish that way too. So it's been a really cool, dynamic between her and the kids. And then it creates that great respect and rapport in the classroom, that they understand that she cares enough to want to do that for them. It's been an awesome asset for her and her class.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And again, as a reminder, we have that in all 43 of our modules in the elementary space and also in our middle school gateway program. One of the things that we often hear is around funding. And so wanted to, either one of you can answer this question, but would love to hear a little bit more on how you funded your Project Lead the Way implementation. I know you're all kind of both working towards a K-12 implementation.
Here in Monroe County, we worked with Mary to access grants through PLTW to fund those launch years, launch as in us implementing, not necessarily launch elementary, but to get the PLTW program off the ground. We also utilize our education foundation here in Monroe County. They have been instrumental in us being able to continue to grow and expand our program. So we've utilized them a lot.
Yeah, and so for our district, what we did was we were able to show the connection to the Ohio Department of Education career pathways. And so as long as you can show the link from elementary to middle to high school, that there's a continuum and it's a career tech endorsed feed, you can receive funding from the state that way. And then we also went to our community members for donations in that manner. And then just some outside grants that we wrote that we were able to create new programs in that way. We also went to Pittsburgh International Airport, and with the flight and space, and now with the program at the high school, we're able to get some funding that way.
Along those same lines, it made me think of with the CTE programs, being able to use Perkin grants and things like that, federal grants that have been instrumental as well in getting us up and going in our high school programs.
That's great. So it sounds like multiple different kind of funding sources to implement. And I'll just share out for all of our viewers that Project Lead the Way does have a number of different industry partners that we do have opportunities to apply for grants on a rolling basis. So definitely go back and check out that pltw.org website for all of our grant opportunities. So I'm going to ask this question for Monroe County because I already asked this one for Shauna a little bit ago, but you have been doing your implementation for a little bit of time now. You have a strong implementation. Can you share, what did you learn most about your implementation? And maybe what was something that you're like, oh, maybe I would have done this differently. Or if you're like, hey, I did it right the first time, I'm good to go.
No, we didn't do it right the first time, that's for sure. You live and you learn. And I like what you said, you start slow to go fast. And that's exactly what happened here. We had this big vision of every single teacher in Monroe County being trained in, PLTW in every single classroom. And that was an awesome vision, but we had to scale it back a little bit to make it more realistic for our district. And that's why we went more the elective and specials route. But we do have a lot of elementary school teachers that are trained because of the launch lead that we have, which is awesome. But looking at the course codes has been our biggest learning curve from this, is making sure at middle and high school that your course codes match those funding opportunities that you have through the federal grants and things like that. So when you're going, you want to build backwards. So looking at the course codes, then building the courses and then going that way. So that would be my number one hiccup that we didn't think of that first year, and then wrapping back around and being like, oof, we probably should have thought about that first. So that was definitely one of the biggest things we learned through the process of getting it through middle and high.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you're saying, you're learning and your implementation always gets better as you're going through it and making those learnings. We did have a question from the chat, and you mentioned co-teaching. I think in some capacity, both of you did. Project, and I'm going to read it as the question is written, so I want to make sure I say it correctly here. How often will the teacher be co-teaching Project Lead the Way in each class each week?
So with me, I'm in Monroe, so I'm Key West to Key Largo, like I mentioned. It's a very big distance as far as traveling. I get in to co-teach with my PLTW teachers at least twice 9 weeks. So we go up and I plan one day, and sometimes that is on teams where we're planning who's doing what and how we're going to interact in the class. And then I'll drive up, let's say to Key Largo, and co-teach with the teachers there. And obviously I can't co-teach the entire module because it's a lot of time. So I'll ask the teacher what they prefer. Do you prefer me come in for the beginning stages, or are we gonna, at the end when we're doing those project-based learning things? So it just depends on the teacher, what their needs are. And I get in at least twice 9 weeks to each one of my STEM teachers.
Yeah, and so at McKinley, so the first elementary school that we implemented this with is smaller than our 3 other elementaries. So our lead teacher, she will co-teach in that 90-minute reading block with each grade. So like 4th grade on Monday, 3rd grade on Tuesday. So she's in there with them that entire time. And then in the afternoons, those grades come to her with that teacher in the lab. So they're seeing her twice a day, 1 or 2 times a week, depending on what else is happening with state testing and whatnot. At our 3 other elementary schools, they're much larger. So there's 3 and 4 sections of 1st grade, 2nd grade. So that Project Lead the Way teacher is seeing them probably only the 1 time a week, but but it's always in a co-teaching environment. They're always either in the classroom with the teacher, or that teacher is in the lab doing those projects.
That's great. One of the things I appreciate about both your implementations is really the district support that you're providing for your teachers as they're implementing, which is, we know it's going to be a really strong. The last question that we have, and I know Monroe County may need to go because you need to use that classroom, but how many modules do you get through maybe per year by grade level? And we'll start with you, Monroe, on the Monroe County side.
Honestly, it depends on the kids. So last year, Hillary was able to get through, I'm speaking specifically here at HOB, more modules. This year, we've noticed that there's a bigger gap for our younger kids that needs to be filled as far as background knowledge. So she's having to go a little bit slower. So just dependent on the year, the kids you have. But honestly, it's about 3 to 4 modules a year, depending on the kids and the teacher and the comfort of everybody involved.
Great, thank you. And Shauna?
Yep, I would agree with that. It always depends on the building and the kids and kind of all the things that kind of encompass that elementary school day. But yeah, I would say between 3 and 4. Our state testing typically ends around the very end of April. So our school year, we start mid-August, we end right around Memorial Day. So what we have done as a district in the last 4 years is once that state testing has finished, we devote the entire May, we call it May semester, May term, where all of the elementaries and all of the middle school do STEM-based learning. And so we're able to plug in additional modules during that time because it's all in a block schedule format.
Yeah.
And so we get a little bit more done that way. But that really is because of the way the state testing runs in Ohio.
Wow. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're utilizing all the days in your school year.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you so much to our host site. Also, Shauna, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us today. And thank you for all of our guests that were on this call with us today. I don't know about you, but I am so inspired and ready to go back just from listening to those kindergarten students. So from all of us here at Project Lead the Way, thank you. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions you may have. And we look forward to connecting with you again in the future.